Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. Fernando?
Today?
Today.
Yes.
I know, it's an F-150, right? Okay.
Yeah, but don't. Just keep watching. Keep watching.
What he said.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll tell you why. But first, the intro. Now let's look at it this way. An F-150, yes, we do a lot of F-150s, we do a lot of Jeep Wranglers, we do a lot of Toyota Tundras. It's just what happens. But this is white, so think of it as a white piece of paper in the sense that what we're gonna do to it and what we're gonna show you today is more of a universal application. It just so happens that it's in an F-150. If you own an F-150, kudos for you. But if you own something else, the lessons learned today will help you in your car stereo endeavor or give you ideas or just, you know, it's entertaining. Let's go with that. Either way, we have some products we're going to be putting into this that I'm pretty excited about, mainly because it is something that we can all relate to. This has a factory stereo in it. It totally sucks. However, for one unknown reason, he likes it. Let's hop in. Now at this point in the game, we know that there's a dash kit for this car. We can get rid of this. We can put an 8-inch in the dash, a 7-inch, a floating 9-inch, 10-inch screen, whatever we want. We can replace this and make it go away. However, if it does everything you want, then why would you get rid of it? It's one of those things. It's become the new norm in car audio. If the radio you have works the way you want it to, why do I need to get rid of it? And this one, though, is limited on what it can do. It does what he wants. Plus, he's like, man, I really want it to sound better. I don't necessarily want to spend $1,000 replacing the radio in my dash. I know what you're thinking, $1,000? What? Well, the dash kit for this, no matter who you buy it from, is not cheap. And then you have all the little parts that go with it, so it can add up really quick. He would rather take that money and just make it sound better. Now we know we can make these sound better, but they require a DSP, which there again gets us back up into that big price point. What if there was a product that was affordable, gave us that DSP, gave us that EQ, and then would make this thing sound better? What could it possibly be? Well, in this stack of stuff we're going to put into his car, fast rings, Focal speakers, is this guy right here. The kicker key is perfect for what we're trying to do in this car. Let me explain why. First off, it's stop-start compliant. This car has stop-start. For those of you that aren't familiar with stop-start, and you probably are, but you just don't know that's what it's called, and you have one of those vehicles where you come up to a stoplight and the engine shuts off, and then you hit the gas because the light turns green and it takes off again. That's stop-start. This amp is stop-start compliant. And you say, well, what makes that a special thing? When the car shuts down and starts back up, a lot of the times the electrical system will drop down to 8.5 volts for a split second, and most amplifiers' power supplies see that and go immediately into protection to protect itself, which means they're going to shut off for a split second until they see that voltage rail back up again, and then they'll turn back on. So it's like, no audio, then audio, and so you drive away. This doesn't need any of that. It automatically just keeps playing through the whole thing. The other thing too is that this little guy here has an EQ and a DSP built into it. Now the other nice thing about this amplifier is that it is high level or low level compatible. By simply cutting off these RCNs here, it can integrate directly into your factory radio. With one caveat. If you have a premium sound system already, this really isn't for you. But if you have a standard audio system like this, that's basically a radio and 4 to 6 speakers, meaning there might be a tweeter in there like this car has, but that tweeter is still powered with the door speaker, this is for you. This is gonna make your basic stereo sound like that amplified system that you wish you would have got. As far as the other side of the amplifier, you have your 8 speaker outputs, your ground, your power, and remote. It also comes with a fuse holder. Now this is pretty simple as far as its power requirements go. As you can see, this guy is pretty small. 12 gauge power and ground, way more than enough to power this. For this install though, because we are going to be going way to the back of the vehicle, which we'll talk about in a minute, we're going to be running a dual 10 gauge power and ground. And the reason why we're going to be using a dual 10 gauge power and ground, for those of you that don't know, F-150s, F-250s are now made out of aluminum, which is perfectly fine conductor if that's what you want to use. However, it's not necessarily the fact that it's made out of aluminum, it's how the car is assembled. They glue it together basically. Some guys have successfully hooked it up, good for them, run aground. especially if you're doing something with an EQ or DSP, just run the ground. One of the really awesome features of the kicker key is how it's programmed. It comes with a microphone in this bag here, and a mount for the headrest, and all the EQ DSP features are done internally by themselves. You just have to play some pink noise, which we're gonna show you how to do. It sets itself and it sounds amazing. Now some of the applications you can use this on is you can do what we like to call a front stage upgrade, which means if you're gonna do a set of components, either like a 2.5, 3.5, or a tweeter up front and then the mid bass down in the door, you can set this up just to run those. There's dip switches here on the side. If you're gonna do what we're gonna do in this car, where we're gonna do front and rear, it'll do that as well. As far as the system that's gonna go in this car, it's gonna be focal. We're gonna do some universal 6x9 components in the front door, then we're gonna do a set of 6.5 coaxials in the rear door. And he's also gonna do the fast rings to make sure that we get the most sound into the car from the speakers. As far as integrating with the factory radio, we're going to use this guy here. This is the Access AX DSP FD2. What comes in this box? A bunch of cables, and what they're used for is Access's DSP. They make the DSP Pro and the DSP Lite, which if you're going to do something other than, let's say, a kicker key and you wanted to integrate in, you could use this to do that. What we like to use it for is just basic integration for any DSP, not necessarily theirs. This is required for their DSP, but for our installation is not. We can set that aside. We need this guy right here. So how do you know if this one will work on your car? That's a great question. What you need to do first is get the radio out of the dash. If you're installing one of these kicker keys for someone else, or a DSP, any DSP for that matter, for somebody else, which is what we do daily, measure where the seat is when you pull it in. So once you hop in the car, don't, pull it forward or push it back or do anything. Don't adjust the seat. Now if it's too far forward and you're too big, well then do this in the parking lot before you pull it around. But either way, measure the seat's position and measure everything. And don't measure it to the steering wheel, because the steering wheel may move. So measure it to something that doesn't move. In some cars the pedals move, so don't measure it to that. Measure top down, forward, measure where the headrest is, measure everything so that when you're done, like we're gonna slide this thing around because we need to get this car apart, but when we're done, we can reuse these measurements to put this seat back exactly where it was when the customer got here. We need to know that because we need to set up our listening system to that, so when he hops in the car, it's like right where it needs to be. Now if you own the car, well that's your problem. And if there's some background noise in the video and you're like, what's going on? Apparently right now we're getting a monsoon. Great day to film, I know. With your radio out of the car, you want to take a look at the harnesses that are there. If you don't know which one is which in your car, unplug them all, take pictures of them, because what you're trying to find is this harness or this harness or this harness. In a Ford, it's this harness that we're looking for. But take pictures of all of them. Once you have the pictures, then what you'll do is you go to those websites and see if you can find the matching harness for your car. In this case, the FD2 is the same looking harness that you're trying to find. That doesn't mean it's pin for pin identical for your car. Now this is an F150 and they haven't changed the harness yet, ever so far, in this particular version of it, and any other version of the Ford for the most part, except for the THX. The THX, totally different. Don't trust that. What you want to do is do a comparison between this harness and the harness in your car. That's where you take a digital multimeter and you try to match up. Really the only thing we're concerned with here are the speaker wires. That's it. Everything else is just a pass-through. So you don't have to worry about the wires that pass through. Those can be whatever they want because it's just a pass-through, which means whatever's here will leave here. We just are worried about the 8 speaker wires. So that limits what you have to test. You only need to test those. And the easiest way to do that is with the digital multimeter set to ohm. And what we're looking for is a 4 ohm or a 3-point something load on what would be the speaker wires. Plug in the harness, grab the end that has the speakers, probe into the positive and negative. We get a 4.2, test them all, 4.4, 4.5. If you see something like that, be concerned. The reason why it was giving us that is the driver's front door speaker is out. Next, we're going to take a tone generator and we're just going to verify that the colors are what they're supposed to be, meaning gray is the passenger front, green and purple go where they need to. Green is driver's rear, white's driver's front, purple is passenger rear. You can do this also with just taking a 9-volt battery and tapping it to the speaker. That's gray, and it is in fact going over here to the passenger door. We're going to try green, which is driver's rear, and that is working. And then we'll try purple, and it goes where it needs to go as well. So that means all the speaker wires are going where they're supposed to go. We can indeed use this harness for what we need it to do, which is give us speaker input and speaker output. Basically a T into the radio.